It's a Monday episode of Locked On Grizzlies, and we are kicking off this week with a bang. Memphis Grizzlies guard Scotty Pippen Jr. joins us to talk the offseason so far, what he's got going on this summer, and more. It's going to be a great episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks so much for being with us here on this Monday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. It is much appreciated. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. And for this first part of the show, we have a very special guest, Scotty Pippen Jr., guard for the Memphis Grizzlies. That's right, your Memphis Grizzlies, Scotty Pippen Jr., will be with us for the first part of the show. We're very excited to have you with us, Scotty. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate you guys having me, so I'm glad we're able to do this.
Absolutely.
Shout out to you, Scotty. Shout out to Scotty for following through. He told me, so shout out to you for coming on the pod, man. They've been telling us to get a couple of the guys on here, so we're glad we could get you on here for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's lead off with what you've been up to this summer, Scotty. I know you have a couple of camps coming up. I know Damichael might talk a little bit more to you about that as well. But just what are some things that you're doing in Memphis, Nashville, the Tennessee area? How are you keeping busy this summer?
Yeah, so this camp's been something that I've been thinking about a long time. Thought about it last summer, but, didn't feel fully established in the city in Memphis yet. So I thought, after my last year, having a pretty good year and how the time was right now, I wanted to give back to the city. So having a camp in Memphis, free camp, just wanted to give back. And then going back to Nashville, where I went to school at Vanderbilt, wanted to give back to that community as well. So I thought, why not knock out two cities in the same state that I've been playing for the last few years.
But I was at church a few weeks back, and somebody came up to me at church and was like, my little brother's gonna be at Scottys Camp in a few weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. And that wasn't the first time that somebody came up to me. But you just mentioned a couple of the details just for the listeners. What else you can add? We know the Memphis camp is July 31st and August 1st. And I believe the dates in Nashville is August 4th and August 5th. As you mentioned, the Memphis one is a free one. I believe you have a $20 T-shirt that they can buy, a camp shirt that they can buy. What else you want to add in terms of, if they go to the Memphis one, if they go to the Nashville camp, what can they expect in those two cities?
Yeah, actually, we also changed the Nashville camp to August 1st start time because we knew the public school system. Gotcha. Yes, we changed it. I would have said to get some skill work, just be up and close enough to players. I want to give back. I want to give back some game, not long as, just have them the ability to see me up close and personal. Because, kids don't always get to see an NBA player asking questions. We get to compete with them. So, you might see me hopping in drills, competing with the kids, as well as giving them game. Out of Nashville, I'm going to have some also former Vandy players, some pros just come back as well. So,
nice.
I think it should be a lot of fun.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Vandy's got some NBA dudes. Vandy's got some dudes that came out there. I remember I did a story. Scotty, you remember the one I did with Jerry Stackhouse, and we were just talking through all the names, all the dudes that have come out of Vandy recently, and they got some dudes. So that should be a fun time. I'm sure. Yeah, that should be a good time.
What is the age limit? Is there a limit? Like, is 38 too old for the camp, or am I flying for that?
We could have as a counselor. You might be able to go on to get into some drills. I don't know about competing with other kids though. But
I told you, Damichael, Scotty Pippen Jr. knows about my game. He knows how to be a counselor at his camp. No, in all seriousness, we're excited to have Scotty Pippen Jr. here with us to start off this Monday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. And Scotty, it has been a busy summer for the Memphis Grizzlies, as you, of course, are aware. The Desmond Bane trade being the biggest piece, but some players have come, some players have gone. I kind of look at, obviously we only have about 10 minutes with you here. I'm looking at the overall feeling, the vibe, if you will, of the moves. And to me, a lot of it says that the team has mentioned how you've built your game. You had a really strong season, a really strong playoffs. When the team was depending on you, you did a phenomenal job in the postseason run there against the Thunder. So how do you see the team's roster kind of shaking out? How much have you followed along, and how excited are you to play alongside the new pieces, perhaps your role moving forward with this new look roster that the Grizzlies are as they retool, so to speak.
I'm super excited. I feel like all the moves are really good for me personally, and I think as well for the team. I've been working on my game a lot, and I feel like this is probably the best I've ever been. So as far as my confidence, I feel through the roof. I'm ready for the season to get started. I feel like all the guys are as well. Just talking to the guys, a lot of excitement. Ty Jerome was just in Vegas with the team, so I was able to chop it up with him a little bit. KCP as well. So just seeing those guys and being able to talk to them, welcome them in, and just seeing them work a little bit with the coaching staff and stuff like that. So I feel like everyone's excited. I feel like, this is our year. Last year we kind of started hot and then kind of took a little dip. So this year I feel like we're all excited and ready to get to it.
I feel like for me, Scotty, the thing that I paid attention to is y'all make these off-season moves. It's like the emphasis on the defensive side. And, I'm watching every game, and there were times you be guarding Kevin Durant, you be guarding the point guards. Like, what's this going to be like for you now that you see y'all went out, got Contagious Caldwell-Pope, you draft Cedric Coward, who's projected to be a strong wing defender, and you add Jemai Meshack and these type of guys who are defensive minded to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off of a Jalen and some of those guys. Like, what do you think that's going to be like now when you can share the floor with those guys and kind of combine your defensive intensities together? What would that look like?
Like I think, like our GM said, Zach, we need to have more dogs, and I feel like that's exactly what we did. So getting more defensive guys, I feel like takes a little bit stress off me. I probably don't have to guard guys, way taller than me, but if I have to, I can. So I'm excited about that because it just makes it harder for teams to score on us because they can't try to get me off the main players and stuff like that. So I'm excited about this team. I feel like we all could guard, and that just makes it harder for teams to compete with us.
We're talking here with Scotty Pippen Jr., Memphis Grizzlies guard, has a wonderful camp coming up in the next week or so, both in Memphis and in Nashville. So make sure you're checking that out. If you haven't already signed up, make sure you're signing your camper up for it.
The website is www.morethanbasketball.the/SPJ camp. It's basketball, the brand/SPJ camp.
Appreciate that, partner. We'll get you out of here on this, Scotty. We know you're a busy man. Obviously, another major change, the head coach, right? You had a chance to play, of course, for the former coach Taylor Jenkins. Tuomas Iisalo was an assistant on his staff. Then he ascended to the interim role, and now, of course, the head man, head honcho. You mentioned being out there in summer league, obviously interim period to close out the regular season and during the playoffs. What are you most excited about? Any early conversations? I know you can't, share everything with us, but things that you're looking forward to with Tuomas Iisalo becoming the head coach moving forward.
I would just say the whole process of him becoming the new head coach. I feel like a little bit last year he kind of got thrown into a difficult situation with the scheduling. Also, like when he took over the team, he wasn't able to really implement his offense and his schemes as much because we already had been taught so much until that point. So I would just say seeing Tuomas with full summer, full preseason training camp, and just seeing his system play out. Me and him have talked a lot about pick and roll, and I feel like that's one of my strengths. So being able to get a season with him, working on that, working with Zack Edy, working with some of the bigs, has been huge in my development. And, I feel like I'm excited about that.
Most definitely. I got one more for you, Scott. I got one more before we let you go here. You're losing, Dez, you lose Luke. That's two of your best 3-point shooters. You shot the ball well last year. A couple other guys, Santi, shot a bunch of 3-pointers last year. What do you make of kind of the way that will look differently now that you don't have a Dez and Luke? But of course, you drafted some guys who could shoot a bit. I'm sure you've seen, and like when we were in Vegas, you saw them a little bit out there practicing in the games. What do you think that part of the offense? What can people expect? From a shooting standpoint, because some people might say, "Oh, you lost Dez, you lost Luke. How are they going to be able to replicate, the way they shot the ball as a team?"
Yeah, I think with whenever you lose a certain thing or you gain a certain thing, like you said, we gain defense. You're probably gonna take from somewhere else. But I feel like we still could all shoot. I can shoot. Jalen Willis can shoot. Santi can shoot. Just to name a few guys, but some of us got to step up and make more shots. Obviously, losing those two guys hurt, but there's more room for everyone else to step up. And, you know, I feel that's what I've been doing, working on my game, working on me being a playmaker as well as a creator, just because I know that Desmond Bane is gone. I know that I believe I can step into that kind of role. So I feel like guys just been working on their games, working on their roles. So
makes sense to me, and it makes sense, of course, to Grizzlies fans who are more than familiar now with the game of Scotty Pippen Jr. Scotty, thank you so much for being with us on this episode. We're going to put that website, Damichael, if you would read it one more time for us here.
Yeah.
We're going to put the website in our episode notes as well, so folks can check out the camp one more time. Damichael, what is it?
For sure. www.morethanbasketball.com morethanbasketball.com/SBJ camp. So there you go. Head over to there, go check it out. And I'll be out there.
There you go.
You know, Joe. Before you go, I got to share this with you too, because I want to. One of the things I'm going to be paying attention to is how tough is he going to be on the kids? Like, is he going to play soft with them, or is he going you know, give them like the MJ treatment or whatever? Because we were at one of the camps earlier this year, and you know, I had a basketball in my hand, and I walked up to Scotty, and I'm like, If I dribble in front of you right now, you know, how long will it take you to rip the ball from me? You know what this man said? He said less than a second. Like he didn't even give me a second, Joe. He's a solid defender, you know. He really good, but a second.
A second. It sounds like you might need to be a counselor there, or maybe you could be a camper. He can help you out. Scotty can coach you up a little bit.
Damichael might need to hop in the drills, man. We might make him a camper. We'll see.
I could be a counselor, and Damichael could be in the drills, and everybody would be very confused. That's an everydayer to Locked On Grizzlies. Scotty, thank you so much, man, for the time. It is much appreciated. Have a great rest of your summer, and we will obviously catch you down the road, and hopefully we can have you back on again down the road, closer to the season.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you guys for having me.
Awesome. All right, and we'll be right back here on Locked On Grizzlies. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest. Sometimes when you're on the golf course or off of it, you need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I got to tell you, I'm terrible at golf. I would play the public courses when I lived in Memphis, not because they're bad, but because they were cheap enough to make me feel like I wasn't terrible at golf and wasting my time. But even in those times hanging out with my buddies putting around the greens, I would need a pick-me-up, and this would have been great to have. Those 5 Hour Energy Transfusions could definitely help in the process. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse to go to without chasing down the Bev card. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36. Get the energizing boost that you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today, right now. What are you waiting for? Go do it. Damichael, shout out to you to get our good friend now, friend of the show. Well, you can't say that. It's got to be multiple appearances. We talked about that. Soon to be friend of the show, Scotty Pippen Jr. on the program. And shout out to Scottys Camp. Again, the information will be in the episode notes. So if you weren't able to get it as you were listening or watching, wherever you're taking in the show, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, YouTube, all those spots, if you're listening, watching on the go, we'll make sure to have that there so you can get your kids signed up. Or maybe just you, right? Damichael will be a camper right alongside you, perhaps. A lot to unpack there, and I'm kind of glad that we structured this episode this way because there's layers to it. You know, in a short conversation, sometimes you can't get a lot out of it. I thought Scotty was pretty forthright, and I appreciate that. Talking about the offseason moves, acknowledging the step back from Desmond Bane, losing a player of that caliber, losing the shooting capacity of a Luke Kennard. Seeing the way that this has kind of opened up for him, right? And I led off the conversation. To me, a lot of it is a confidence in Scotty, like that he can take on the brunt of this. He can be what the Grizzlies need him to be, whether it's in the pick and roll as a point guard. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later with the Iisalo part of the conversation. But really kind of focusing on, hey, whether it's on the defensive end, whether it's as a scorer offensively, as a secondary facilitator of offense, bringing in a Ty Jerome who I can play next to. He didn't directly say that, but he said he had talked to Ty, started those conversations a little bit, getting to know him. To me, a lot of what was done was a vote of confidence in what Scotty Pippen Jr. can be for this team.
Yeah, there is a direct correlation there, I think. When you think about the whole premise of this offseason and just kind of peeling the layers back, the Desmond Bane trade and things like that. And we heard the idea, communicated through the Grizzlies, themselves wanting to, like Scotty said, get more dogs defensively, right? And then you go get a Contavious Caldwell-Pope. And Joe, shout out to you. You contained yourself. When he said dogs, I thought you were going to scare Scotty off the show and just start barking all over the place.
I'm supposed to be. I was on my best behavior.
You contained yourself.
We are on the up and up here at Locked On Grizzlies. We're on the up and up. I'm trying to be a well-mannered host when we have guests. It's important to be polite when you have guests. No disrespect to you, of course. I just have a different relationship with you. I'm comfortable showing off my excellent bark when you're here.
Yeah, most definitely. But that stood out to me because I think we could say Scotty's a dog. Scotty's a dog for sure. Oh, there it is. He couldn't contain it too much longer. But you got a couple guys on this team already. But when you talk about the roster makeup and adding, a quote unquote dog to the starting lineup, and then when you talk about the second unit, you get Ty Jerome, Scotty Pippen Jr. I really can't wait to see that combination. It just feels like those two guys can play well off of each other because Ty can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. Scotty can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. We know Scotty's going to get after it defensively, so he can take the tougher defensive matchup of the two. And then at the 3, you could still have a plus defender in that situation, depending on who you have on the floor, whether it's a Vince Williams Jr. We haven't really talked a lot about him this offseason, but a Vince Williams Jr., whether it's a John Conchar, or possibly, G.G. Jackson as he continues to. And I thought in summary, G.G. Jackson really showed some positive signs on the defensive end. So as he continues to round out on that end, but the roster just feels more balanced when you have, those defensive-minded point of attack defenders. And I think something that, when I asked Scotty about, getting those other defenders around him, and his answer I thought was really good there too, because you'll remember, like I said, there were times he had to guard Kevin Durant's and the Kawhi Leonard's, of the world. When Jalen Wells would come out of the game, Scotty would come in, and here's Scotty, every bit of 6'1", 6'2", maybe 6'3", guarding, guys that are close to 7 feet. And he said, look, he's still willing to do it. But it provides more balance to the roster when you can say, all right, Scotty, you got that guard. We're going to put a Cedric Coward, or we're going to put, a G.G. Jackson, 6'9", 6'10", or Vince Williams in these long arms. We're going to put those guys on the bigger wings, and we're going to match up across the board just like that and just have more suitable and ideal matchups defensively.
I am intrigued by those backcourt tandems as well. And I think that versatility is really important, to be honest with you, because the rise of Jalen Wells, we've talked about that a lot. Him as a starter, even though there's this weird backlash against Jalen Wells over the last month or so. But I am a big believer in what Wells brings to this Grizzlies team. And I think that the fact that a Wells and a Pippen Jr. and a Jerome and a Morant, there's not really a combination of those guys that can't play together. Maybe the one that might be a fun offseason August episode of Locked On Grizzlies, duos that we're worried about. Maybe Ty Jerome and John Morant, maybe not so much, right? But beyond that, I think that you're looking at a really functional backcourt where they complement each other really nicely, and that's important. And we've talked a ton in the past, and we'll continue to do so, about how important that second forward is, right? If you're assuming that KCP is in that conversation, who the next guy, whether it's Coward, Williams Jr., G.G. Jackson, that is going to be a
bunch of them.
Yeah, but again, in the absence of the ability to go up and get a Cooper Flag or a Dylan Harper or somebody along those lines that can really check that box for you, an Ace Bailey even, right? In the absence of that, you have to get as many bites at the apple as you can do. And I think Memphis has put themselves in a good position to, at least by process of elimination, maybe you don't find a superstar, fingers crossed you do, but maybe you can create one of these guys like a Frankenstein's monster almost, in a way. You take the length of one, you take the shooting of another, you take the defensive ability, the offensive creativity. If you can fit all those minutes, maybe it's not one dude, maybe it's several. It's in the aggregate that you try to produce this stuff. And Scotty Pippen Jr. is going to be a big part of that, especially with the reserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that stood out to me too, Joe, is when I asked them about the 3-point shooting, it's something that we touched on, and they kind of addressed it through some of their moves, right? Cedric Coward, positive 3-point shooter at the college level. Ty Jerome, very efficient NBA level 3-point shooter. So, they kind of did address some of those things. But again, Desmond Bane, the volume, you're going to miss there. The accuracy of a Luke Kennard, not the volume in that case, but the accuracy more so with Luke Kennard. That's a couple big 3-point pieces that they're losing. But, I mean, Scotty sounded pretty confident. He said, I can shoot the ball. Santi can shoot the ball. They have guys that can shoot the ball. So that is definitely something that, I think, as we talk about questions going into the season, it's how will that transition take place? But he seemed pretty confident in it.
I think that when you're a professional athlete, and especially one with the backstory of Scotty Pippen Jr., not just the fact that he had to go through the G League, through the two-way contract, all those sorts of things, having an organization, the Los Angeles Lakers, not see the value in you, and to also have to deal with, we didn't talk about it, understandably, just his name, right? Like, as fair or unfair as that is, for him to make that leap that he has made and to be a key rotation piece for this Grizzlies team moving forward from where he was in his college and NBA career and all those expectations, again, fairly or unfairly placed. A very different player, but he has found his home in Memphis, and we're very glad that he has done so. At least I know Damichael and I are. Hopefully you are as well, our everydayers. Let us know in the comments. Hit us up on X how you're feeling about Scotty and what he said about the offseason moves. When we come back here on this edition of the show, we will close out. We also talked a little bit with Scotty about Tuomas Iisalo, how he perceives that coaching change and what he's excited about. We'll wrap that part of the conversation up next. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. It is I, Joe Mullinax, one of your hosts, joined by my co-host, the incomparable, the award-winning Damichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. We had Scotty Pippen Jr. on to start the show. If you somehow missed that, by all means, go back and check it out. It was a great conversation. Really appreciate Scotty. Again, in the episode notes, we're going to have further details about that camp that is going on both in Memphis and in Nashville. Check out Scottys Camp. And like I said, maybe I'll fly in and be a counselor. I can coach Damichael up a little bit on some things as he goes through as a camper. That was pretty good. Shout out to Scotty. That was funny. We close out this episode. Again, Scotty talked about the coaching change, right? Iisalo, the new head coach. Scotty was out there in Vegas, watched him work. One of my biggest takeaways, Damichael, is, and you hear this all over the place, more just preference for me. But, the idea that they didn't talk to anybody else, right? Iisalo was the guy.
That was the guy.
And that bothered me. I don't want to speak for you, but if I remember correctly, it bothered you a little bit. Maybe not as much as me. But Scotty said what others have said, right? You can't judge him based off of what he was given, right? The landing of the plane. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had to land the plane that was the 2024-2025 Grizzlies. It wasn't his team, right? It was Taylor Jenkins' team. He hasn't had a chance for it to be his team yet. And he sounded legitimately excited about what the Iisalo version of this Grizzlies team is going to look like.
Yeah, you keep hearing a lot about pick and roll. Every time you talk to someone when we talk about Iisalo, it's pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll. So we know that this is still a team that's going to be emphasizing playing fast. That's one of the things that will transition over from the Taylor Jenkins era Grizzlies to the Iisalo era. You will see the continued emphasis to get out and transition, to get out and run. But the idea of being this team that's going to rely on not just pick and rolls on the ball. We saw in summer league, there was some off-ball off-ball screens set for guys and things like that. But with Scotty Pippen Jr. in particular, he talked about him, pick and roll being comfortable for him. And I'm intrigued to see, more of that. I felt like Scotty was actually one of the players who and last year thrived when the Grizzlies kind of did this system where it was a lot of, drive and kick and the spacing and things like that. So that was actually the part of Scotty's game to me last season. When you talk about, when he took that step, offensively, he really kind of thrived in that situation. So seeing him more in pick and roll, I'm intrigued to see what that will look like.
And the 3-point shot is going to be key as well, like you guys talked about.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to be that off-ball shooter, him next to Ja in that Desmond Bane role almost, right? A de facto Bane replacement. And
again, that's what he said. He said he could play that role, yeah.
Right. You can't replicate what Bane did. That would be disrespectful to Desmond Bane. But you do your best to find that possibility within the game of Scotty Pippen Jr. and Ty Jerome and Jalen Wells and all these other pieces. I feel like
Caldwell-Pope, yeah,
KCP is going to be a big part of that, of course, as well. We'll finish up on this. He mentioned the big man, right? He mentioned Zack Edy, and I was excited again, obviously with the injury uncertainty, don't know how far you can go down that road. But it got me thinking, and we talk more about this on a future episode, Damichael, between Small, between Morant, between Pippen Jr., Ty Jerome, I would love to do a breakdown of the different ways that all of these guards can create offense off of these Zack Edy screens. It's almost like this guy is going to be a legendary giant that all of these wonderfully talented guards in very different ways can play off of, just because of the elite amount of space that he can create. Again, no disrespect to Steven Adams. He did it at a phenomenal level at a smaller size than Zack Edy, but as Edy gets better at it, I think between Morant's athleticism, Small has similar craftiness and athleticism, not the same as Ja, but similar. Jerome's floater game, there's so much that Scotty Pippen Jr. can do, scoring and creating at all these different levels. The screen setting and how all of them are going to fit is really going to be fun to kind of watch unfold.
I laugh internally as you talk through this, because I keep going back to the verbiage that Zack Edy used to describe what you basically just said, and he was talking about with Iisalo being the coach, he gets to headhunt people more. So it's just when I think of that, I think of like when the old days of football, when you just you just lock in on a target and you say I'm going right after him, like and that's the vibes that I get when a guard says, hey, I'm going to guard Ja Morant, and it's like, all right, well, sure, you want to guard Ja, you're going to have to guard 50 Ja pick and rolls, which means you're going to be getting headhunted by Zack Edy for majority of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see the space he creates, and then there's got to be the craftiness to it too. I think that's where I want to see how Ja works with him in that increment. And this is where, we talk about just the game within the game. And when Steven Adams came to Memphis, he taught Ja, the little double screen where he set the screen, and then he'd kind of like, block both the guard and the big, and Ja would get a wide open layup without it being a moving screen, so to speak. We saw that time and time again. Even if it wasn't a layup, he'd get a wide open floater.
Sure.
And then it started happening with Desmond Bane and some of the other guards when Steven Adams was here. And then Steven Adams went to Houston. And then you started to see it with Jalen Green. And you start to see it a little bit. Fred VanVleet doesn't get in the paint like that. But you start to see it, with some of the guys in Houston. I'm like, man, that looks so familiar. But this is where, the copycat game, or, you take what you learn in the NBA and you apply it when you have these veterans on your roster. Because now I'm wondering, like, is Ja Morant going to show Zack Edy the film of him and Steven Adams? Hey, look, you see how he sets that screen on the big there, then he comes back and he blocks this guy off. You do that, we're probably going to get 6 to 8 free points every single game. And those tend to add up, as we saw, in the small time that Steven Adams spent in Memphis on the floor. Emphasis on the floor. They were a really good team.
I think that Scotty Pippen Jr. is going to do a phenomenal job with Zack Edy, with every member of the Grizzlies roster. Again, it was really cool to have him talking about Iisalo. It just feels like these guys are going to be put in positions to maximize what they bring to the table. Like, should Zack Edy learn how to shoot three-point shots? Yeah, he probably should in the modern NBA. Is he ever going to be Jay Huff? Probably not, but that's not what they need him to be. They need him to be something that he is physically capable of being that Jay Huff will never be able to do. And I'm just using Jay Huff as an example because it felt like last year at times, square peg, round hole, right? We talked about that with Zack Edy several times.
For sure.
System. Now it feels like Iisalo is in a place where he's going to utilize guys where they're best suited to be fit up in their schemes. And I think Scotty Pippen Jr. is going to be a big part of that too. So once more, thanks to Scotty. Make sure you're checking out the camp in the next week or so. And again, those details will be in the episode notes. And thank you guys so much for being with us on this edition of Locked On Grizzlies. The next time we're together, Damichael, a preseason schedule was released. That's something that we can talk about. Interesting matchups. Perhaps the lack of certain teams being on there. I know in the past the Grizzlies have taken on some international flavor with some of their preseason games. That is not the case this time around. So maybe we tackle the preseason schedule and go from there.
Yeah, let's do it. I like a couple of the matchups they got on there, and preseason this year is going to take on a different interest for me because it should be the first time we see a Cedric Coward, and at some point maybe we'll see how Jaren continues to progress. I don't want to put too formal a timeline on it, but there's a decent chance, right? Possibly that you could see Jaren Jackson Jr. later in the preseason or whatever the case may be. So yeah, we'll see how all that irons out. But yeah, we'll break down all of that within these matchups as well.
Thanks for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, YouTube, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Become an everydayer. If you aren't already one, hang out with Damichael and I each and every time that an episode drops. We're going to continue to grind forth as best we can through the month of July. We're going to do our best to finish this week out strong. And then starting next week, we'll have the kind of shortened schedule. Again, we don't want to insult our audience's intelligence. The dog days of the NBA season, we don't want you to show up and just listen to us talking about our pickup games for 30 minutes or something like that. So we are going to condense it a little bit after this week, but we're going to do our best to get as many episodes as we can this week for you before that officially starts the first full week of August. For Damichael, I am Joe. Shout out to Scotty Pippen Jr. Really cool to have him on. Thanks to the Grizzlies' wonderful PR staff, everybody that helped make that possible. Hopefully we'll be able to have a couple more guys on here as August unfurls and we get closer to the preseason. For Damichael, I'm Joe. Stay locked in. Have a great rest of your Monday. We will catch you back here next time here on Locked On Grizzlies. See you.